And here to talk about, imagine that, the lost recordings. The lost recordings of Patsy Cline, that is very exciting. As great an artist and as popular as she was, she actually didn't record that much, so most welcome. I have the pleasure first to introduce, to my immediate right, Dylan Utz, who is an audio engineer and founder of Starlight Sound, a Maryland-based transfer lab which offers restoration services. He is unrelated to the potato chip family. Born in Silicon Valley, Dylan's lifelong love of music first materialized at 4 years old when he started burning CDs. I started burning CDs when they hit the market, but you know. As a teenager, he discovered 78s and experimented with digital transfer. He was trained as a recording engineer in college, earning a degree in audio production with the help of Doug Pomeroy, Jamie Howarth, and a few others. He began pursuing a career working with legacy formats. Dylan has independently studied disc transfer, audio restoration methods, and the history of recorded sound for the last 6 years. A member of the ARSC Technical Committee, his current research objectives include the improvement of coarse groove reproduction, and in addition to his two records, he collects cameras and enjoys film and digital photography in his spare time. So please welcome Dylan Utz.
Thank you very much. I'm going to talk about the first two tracks on our release. This is Mark Zeidelman's Lacquer Disc. It has on one side a long, long ride, and it has on the other side the wrong side of town. I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about how I restored this. These are the songs. Both are Columbia Records 1953, George, 78 RPM. And for everyone horrified by the Columbia Red Label, this is the era where the shellac is actually a lot better than it was the years prior. There's a very rare photo right there, WEPM. That's Patsy Cline in Bill Pear's Melody Boys and Girls. And you'll see that we got a female bassist back there too, so it is girls with an S. This is the disc itself. This is a 12-inch audio disc lacquer. It's a stable formulation cut at 78, well, as we'll find out, cut near 78 RPM. While it was chemically all right, which a lot of lacquers aren't. A lot of lacquers suffer from steric or palmitic acid exudation. You'll see it's white and cloudy, and it exudes from the surface of the disc. This disc did not have that. I got away with cleaning it using a distilled disc doctor, although it had a lot of mechanical problems. I mean, it had those golden ratio. M212R. This is the raw transfer.
Oh, it's a long, long, long ride from Phoenix to Chicago.
It's a little bit damaged. A little bit. Here's the problems that I faced working on this historical recording. I believe it was cut without bass de-emphasis, which is a little bit tricky because if it was cut at any louder a level, the grooves might have slammed into each other. The audio was very quiet. They rode the gain up on the beginning of the side, which now I have to counteract that today. It's off pitch. The lathe slowed down by about 25 cents by the end of the disc, which is funny because the reverse, which is called the wrong side of town, actually sped up until the middle of the song and then slowed down. There were prominent hum signals running throughout. It combined with damage, and it created this weird sound, like a click with tone. And I was very, very perplexed with this when I first heard it, because most clicks should sound like an impulse. But these sounded like toom, toom. And I had never heard that sound before. So I was trying to think about, how can I remove that sound? I'm a big fan of slow transfer for a variety of reasons. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of rumble that comes up from the low frequencies if you're transferring a disc slow and you speed it up. It also had wax chatter, which the famous restoration engineer John R.T. Davis of England believed that originated from the stylus being too cold. And then underneath all of this damage, which you can't hear initially, there I found a few tape dropouts. So we believe that this comes from tape. As some of you know, I do various types of research, and I managed to find a picture of the original lathe that cut this record. Actually, I think that was probably more speed stable than the lathe that cut this record.
It was more like a pottery wheel.
In my view, great restoration is three things: using the right processes, applying them in the right amount, and doing them in the right order. If you do all of those three things, I think you can do very, very little wrong as a restoration engineer. And this is a little bit a deep dive into the order of operations. These are a bunch of things you need to do if you're working on, well, this recording, but most of these translate to discs. Let's go down the line here. We have declicking, get on pitch, fade out, bass curve, dehum, correct wow, get to mono, manual repairs, and a high frequency curve. Part of this, I believe, is objectively true, because if you don't do these tasks in the right order, you will impair your ability to do them correctly later. However, some of these are a little bit subjective, so it's kind of a, it might be unfair to ask you, guess what I like to do. But I want to see, does anybody think they have an idea for what might be the first step?
Are you talking about post-transfer, doing these in the digital domain, or?
Yes. Oh, yeah, no worries. Yes. What I like to do is to get the disc on pitch, and I like that so much, I'm going to turn that green. And then I usually get to mono. There's three usual ways of getting to mono. You can make a sum and difference mix, you can select a channel, or you can switch between channels. My personal preference, I don't like to declick two channels. I think some of the two-channel editors treat everything as if it's stereo, and I think you have to remember that a disc transfer is a matrixed recording. It's best described sort of like a mid-side. It's a vertical and lateral picture of a lateral groove. Next, I would usually correct the wow if it was needed, if it was bad enough to warrant, because I would like to perform manual repairs on a time-correct file. Manual repairs are what I think of as interpolate, or removing rumble, or a spectral repair. Then I would usually add in a bass curve, and then do declicking. I would declick after the bass curve to correct issues now that are more audible. You've got some low frequency, low level clicks that are on discs, and when you apply a bass curve, you're going to make them a lot louder. What you're doing when you're doing this, I believe, is you're playing to the strengths of the algorithm. I would usually then do manual repairs, which is anything the declicker did not get, and then a high frequency curve, declicking before the high frequency curve to correct issues when they are flat, which is more audible. This assumes a flat transfer in the high frequencies, which is something I like to do because I feel that the declicker does better with clicks that have not been transformed or de-emphasized. And then I would usually run a dehum, and then a fade out. Let's get rid of these. Oh, one more thing here. Yes, the high frequency curve and the dehum can switch if you got a high frequency signal. I'm on the younger side. I can hear video sync. It's way up there. And I did take it out of a bunch of recordings because, of course, they came from television. Let's get rid of these notes here for a second. Now, this would be an order that would work if this were a typical recording, but this is damaged in a specific way. These are the problems I ran into working on this recording. If I correct the wow before doing the dehum, it scrambles the hum signal and makes it impossible to track. The disc slowed down, I think it's like 30 or 40 cents, but the hum signal was independent of some of the wow. But when you do that, the hum signal now exists over a great amount more frequencies. So there's nothing you can do to remove that hum if you correct the wow first. Also, the clicks with tone. The hum confuses the declicker and does not remove them. So instead of toom, toom, it removes the click aspect of that, but then you have wum, wum, and that's still not correct because that's a sound that's not a part of the original recording. So let's start over, and let's simply move dehum earlier in the chain. And then everything else falls into place. Everything is in a logical order and has to be done this way so that it doesn't impair your future ability to work on various aspects of the repair of the recording. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about declickers and the ones I use, the ones I like, pros and cons, and there's a section at the bottom that says for this recording, which is specifically what I did to restore Mark Zeidelman's lacquer disc. First up, we have Click Repair. Click Repair was produced by two guys. One of them is the late Professor Brian Davies of Australia. His field was chaos theory, and if you examine the mathematics of chaos theory, you'll find it to be the fundamentals of a lot of declicking algorithms. It source clicks by size. You have simple, wavelet, times 2 and times 3. It has a stereo to mono switch that I don't think I've ever used. The pitch protection checkbox over there is actually really good because declickers are hungry animals and they like to eat trumpets. It works well for sources up to average shape. The pitch protection setting discourages taking away content from the recording that you would otherwise like. When it was available, it had low cost. It has somehow, I don't know quite what happened, but it came off the market, and Shay is talking to one of the co-makers of this, and you believe it's coming back soon? Yes. It might be. Oh, okay. The con of this declicker is it creates the sort of weird pink noise-like sound when you push it too hard, and now that Java has been out of date for a little bit, it's now harder to run than other software. And for this, for the Mark Zeidelman lacquer disc, I tried, but I did not use it. Next up, I have a declicker that's a part of the Cedar Cambridge system. This is Declickle 3. This is sold as their top-of-the-line, very high feature set declicker. It sorts clicks by size. You have fine, medium, and coarse. It's very powerful, but in my view, I think it can come at the expense of a desired signal, the musical content that you want to keep. I like it on one pass. I feel it's very effective and it's very transparent on one pass. But the second that you keep doing it, and logically you might want to run a pass that's fine, a pass that's medium, a pass that's coarse, I think it starts to run into the sound. It's been known to eat vocals. It did so when I was restoring the PATSY Cline LPs. She's got a very, very powerful voice. Like, she sings with her diaphragm, not with her throat. And so when I tried this declicker on the PATSY Cline LPs, it just started chewing up her voice, and I knew that I couldn't use it. I felt a better fit was needed for the Zeidelman disc. You have to run strong settings on a source that's so damaged. But the downside of that is you start to hear the fact that the algorithm has to do so much invention, and it becomes false eventually. Next up is the Studio D-Click. As I own it, it appears as it is on the right side of the screen there. They have recently rebranded this as the Cedar Icon series. It does not sort clicks. You have no options to choose what kind of damage you're going after. It's a single knob control. But I've quite liked this. It's very effective. It's very transparent. I've used it for shellac discs for years. It has VST availability, so if you're on a Mac, you can use it. And for some reason, a great amount of the Cedar software has recently come way down in price. It is now $65 to own a cedar declicker, which is unheard of. A weakness I found in virtually all of the cedar declickers, it's not good at tackling low-level, low-frequency clicks, the kind of sounds you get when you're dealing with a dime store record, or occasionally gritty sound you get from an LP. And for some reason, I really don't know this at all. I did a transfer of a disc at 192, and I resampled it down to 96, the same exact transfer. And I ran the same exact settings on the 192 file and the 96K file. And at the 96 kilocycle sample rate, it is about twice as effective. And I do not know why that is. So if you use this, I would best advise you to use it at 96K. For this recording, I tried to use this because it's one of my favorites. I do enjoy it. But the disc was so damaged that it couldn't remove the damage that was present well. Next up, we have Cedar Cambridge Vintage Decrackle. It sorts clicks by a choice of two algorithms. You can choose Crackle 1 or Crackle 2. The split level is where the algorithm is giving you the choice to decide what is a click and what isn't. And then, of course, the threshold is how hard you're hitting it. All of the Cedar declickers come from an algorithm they had a long time ago called split and recombine. I was really, really, really surprised by this because it's called Vintage Decrackle because it is vintage. They made this algorithm a number of years ago, and yet when I used it on this recording, it offered a transparency that I was very surprised by. This is an old algorithm, but it worked better than technology that's a good amount newer. It still leaves some loud clicks in. It's only available on Cedar Cambridge or the very old Cedar hardware, and occasionally the clicks it doesn't take out can sound a little strange, although I found this to not truly be a downside because if you run a declick pass after it, it picks those up, and they're gone anyway. For this recording, I definitely used this. I was very happy when I found it because it was the last thing I tried. I was running out of declickers, and this is an extremely damaged recording. I wanted to preserve the room. And I think that a really good declicker does that. All of this damage is on top of this recording. And my favorite declickers are able to preserve the room. They're able to reconstruct the signal. It sounds as if it wasn't damaged. Thank you. You might have been waiting for this one. This is the Isotope RX declick. It sorts clicks by timing interval. The most used features are usually multi-band random or multi-band periodic. It has the most machinability of any declicker that I've ever used because of the frequency skew. A bunch of declickers have sensitivity, but being able to choose where in the frequency range you're getting rid of clicks is a very useful feature. The strength of this declicker is Cedar's weakness, which I find very interesting. The Isotope declicker is great at tackling low-level, low-frequency clicks. It will dive into your recording and pull that stuff out. It's known to eat percussion and brass, high-frequency reconstruction. In my view, I don't think it's quite lifelike as I would like it to be on extremely damaged recordings. I tried it on Mark Seidelman's disc, and it tended to go after scratch-like clicks at high frequencies, swish. It was trying to go after too much of it, and the reconstruction didn't impress me. It didn't sound natural. So what I did was I started with Cedar Vintage Decrackle, and then I used Isotope, and I kept the frequency skew low. I used Isotope for the rest of the cleanup on Mark's disc. Next, there is the Cedar Icon Series / Studio Decrackle and the Isotope RX Decrackle. Pro, they function. Con, not that well. I don't like these. I think the Cedar Decrackle is a little bit, I don't think it does enough. And then the Isotope Decrackle, it works at some times, but you can really push it way too far easily. That strength slider and the sensitivity slider is really life or death when you're dealing with Isotope. And for this recording, the other tools earlier have so much that these don't, so I opted to use those instead. So I was leaning towards a Bill Savory-esque restoration. My mentor, Doug Pomeroy, transferred these discs from the Bill Savory collection. Bill was this recordist in the 30s and 40s. He cut all of these discs into lacquer and metal. And the problem was that they were in his basement for a long while. They were wet for the better part of 2 decades. The boxes that the discs were in had been drenched with water. So a lot of these discs became quite damaged. And when you have to restore something that's as damaged as this, you can't get rid of everything. You're going to have to leave some damage present because you're going to destroy the high frequencies. You're going to destroy... The room is always the first thing to go, is another thing I've noticed. So the second you hear the room going, you know you need to back off. I wanted to arrive at something that was musical. I wanted to arrive at something that maintained the aesthetic of the song. I didn't want to go overboard and lose the performance. I wanted to keep artifacts out of the signal, which is very, very hard when you have 50,000 clicks to take out of a recording. So now I'm going to play for you the results. It's a before and after, and I hope you enjoy.
It's a long, long, long ride from Lover's Lane to Cheese. Baby, that's the ride you took me for. It's a long, long, long ride from Lover's Lane to Cheese. Baby, that's the ride you took me for.
Thank you very much. If you have any questions for the whole thing, I believe.
We have, well, by the clock, we have about 1 minute for questions, but I think we can take 2 or 3, but it is 12:29. And, okay, we'll take Morgan, will be the mic runner.
Hi, thank you. Excellent in every way.
Thank you.
I'm just curious, as you access the Ozark Jubilee kinescopes, if my hometown hero, Slim Wilson, who I believe did a duet with her, happened to make the cut on your compilation.
Let's Go to Church.
It certainly did.
Yes.
Song
not-
written by Steve Allen.
That's
Excellent.
right.
Excellent.
One of his good ones.
That's great
Yeah.
news.
In
Thank
a
you.
serious moment by a comedian, right?
Right.
That is actually my favorite of the duets because Patsy really concentrates on the harmony part for that one, and they sing really well together. And I even fought to include a bit of dialogue with Slim on another performance. So.
Anything else? We've got a few.
Just a quick question. I've always been curious about this. When you're using a stereo cartridge, because you talked about vertical and lateral,
Yes.
to play back the mono disc, do you take those as 2 separate files and then see like, hey, there's no noise on the left side of this, and there's noise on the right side of this, and then combine those, or how do you do that?
Usually the technique I like to use is called a sum and difference mix. I like to take the channel that's the most damaged, duplicate it in an audio editor, so you'll have 3 channels. Let's say the right is the most damaged. So you want to invert the right against the left. You'll have a left, a right, and a right. You'll invert the polarity of the first right and then change the level when you're muted to when the second right is muted. And then you'll listen to the vertical modulation, the information that you're canceling out. And you change the level of that file, and then you unmute the other side, the other right you muted, and that cancels out. And I usually like to do that. It's a great technique, but on this disc, it was one of the rare times where a sum and difference mix did not make it better. So on this disc, I ended up selecting the right channel, and then also in extreme cases, I have also it's like there's a feature in Pro Tools called playlists, and we used it in college to produce a vocal. So a vocalist would record a great many takes, and then you would select a phrase, and then you hit this up button, and the up button would put it on the master take. I actually arranged this so, not this recording, but a different one. I put the left and the right channel into Pro Tools playlist. So I would select the part that I wanted and then hit the up button, and then that would be the master take. And that's a way to switch between the groove walls in an extreme case of damage. But I prefer a sum and difference mix. Sometimes it doesn't work.
Do we have any questions for George? Curious. Anyone?
Well, I guess my question's for George because I'm not a technical guy. I just wondered
Okay.
when and how these will become available to the public.
Oh, it's out.
Yeah, it was a Record Store Day first release, so it came out on vinyl April 12th, and then wider release to CD and download, high definition download.
April 18th.
April 18th, yeah.
Right.
So it's out now. Yeah.
I've got a question about.
Shay has a question.
I've got a question about what you use to de-noise, as far as background noise, and also, did you credit the hog in the recording as personnel on the track recorded in the barn?
The hog did not appear. The hog was on a part of the tape that we did not include. I have usually used Cedar Auto Dehiss to good effect. I think it's a really strong plugin. I've sometimes used Isotope Spectral Denoise. On this recording, I did not actually do any denoising. It wasn't noisy in the sense of the lacquer was noisy. It was noisy in the sense of there was a bunch of damage there, and that was producing noise.
How about for rumble?
For rumble, I've sometimes used both, actually. Both of those same things I've sometimes used for rumble.
I thought I did see a question for George out there. Anyone?
There we go.
How did you decide on Imagine That as the title for the album?
That's a great question.
That's a great question.
I wanted to use that title for over a decade now for a release that I felt would be really tongue-in-cheek in reference to one of Patsy's chart hits and also a great song written by Ernest Tubb's eldest son, Justin Tubb. But I guess the stars just lined up so that I could use it this time around. Imagine That, the Lost Recordings. We did pitch other ideas, but that's the one we all landed on. We felt it was the most appropriate.
Yeah. Is that everything? All right. Thank you very much.
Dylan Utz, George Hewitt, and George Blood.